The Millionaire CEO and his secretary. A model entrance. A jaw-dropping revelation. Hook. Alexander Vance slammed his phone onto the Italian mahogany desk. The sound echoed through his 45th floor office in the sleek Manhattan corporate tower like a gunshot. "That damn stupid woman! How dare she hang up on me?" Employees passing by in the hallway quickened their pace. They knew that voice. When the CEO of Vance Pharmaceuticals roared, heads rolled. Amelia Hayes didn't look up from her computer. Her fingers continued typing the quarterly report as if nothing had happened. She had learned that invisibility was her best defense. "Hey, you!" Amelia looked up. Alexander was pointing at her as if she were an object. "Get me Isabella Thorne's number, now!" "Mr. Vance, I already called her 3 times this morning. Her assistant said that. Are you telling me you can't do your job?" Alexander's green eyes gleamed with that coldness she had seen 1,000 times. At 32, he was the youngest CEO in the history of the American pharmaceutical industry, and he never let anyone forget it. "No, sir. I'm just informing you that I'm not interested in your information. I want results." Amelia dialed the number. Isabella's secretary answered on the first ring. "Vance Pharmaceuticals. Good morning. This is Amelia Hayes, Mr. Vance's assistant. Could you connect me with Ms. Thorne?" A pause, then a muffled laugh. "Oh dear. Ms. Isabella asked me to tell Mr. Vance something very clearly. She prefers to go to the gala alone, rather than accompanied by a boor with no manners, and tell him not to call again." The line went dead. Amelia swallowed. "Well?" Alexander had approached so closely that she could smell his expensive cologne mixed with the aroma of the Colombian coffee he drank every morning. "She says she already has a date for the gala." "A date? That spoiled brat doesn't have a penny without her daddy." Alexander strode back to his desk. His $3,000 Armani suit stretched across his broad shoulders. He was handsome. No one could deny that. Perfectly styled dark hair, a square jaw, those green eyes that had graced the covers of business magazines. But his beauty vanished as soon as he opened his mouth. The phone rang again. Amelia answered. "Vance Pharmaceuticals. Is Mr. Vance available?" "This is Chloe Miller." "One moment, please." Amelia covered the receiver. "Sir, Ms. Miller on line 2. Alexander smiled. Chloe was the daughter of the owner of the country's largest hotel chain. "Chloe, my love, how are you, beautiful?" Amelia pretended to concentrate on her documents, but she heard every word. "Alexander, I'm so sorry. I already have a date for the foundation gala." "A date? Who? It's just... Oh, I don't know how to tell you this. You're so intense, you know? Always talking about money and how much you're worth. Women want something more. Romantic. Romantic? Chloe, I'm the richest man under 35 in all of America. What's more romantic than that? Well, I don't know. Maybe someone who doesn't treat me like I'm a business acquisition." The line went dead. Alexander was left holding the phone, his face red with humiliation. "These women don't know what they want." He threw the phone to the floor. The screen shattered into pieces. Amelia knelt to pick up the fragments without being asked. It was part of the routine. "What are you looking at?" "Nothing, sir. Just cleaning." "Well, stop cleaning and get me another date for the gala. The event is in 3 days." "Sir, we've already called every woman on your list." "All of them?" Amelia nodded. It had been a long morning. 20 calls, 20 rejections. Some were polite. Others, like Isabella, brutally honest. "It can't be. I'm Alexander Vance. I have a fortune of $200 million." His voice cracked slightly on the last word. For a second, Amelia saw something different in his eyes. It wasn't the arrogant CEO. It was a rich boy who didn't understand why his money couldn't buy what he most desired: respect. But the moment passed quickly. You, come here. Amelia approached, still holding phone fragments. Do you know any single women? Friends of yours? Amelia thought of her friends. Maria, who worked in a coffee shop. Sarah, who studied nursing at night. Hard-working, honest women who would never tolerate 5 minutes with Alexander Vance. I don't think they're appropriate for the type of event, sir. Why? Because they don't have money? Because you would make them cry in less than an hour. The words came out before she could stop them. Amelia covered her mouth, horrified. Alexander stared at her. His eyes narrowed into dangerous slits. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean to. No. Tell me exactly what you think of me. Amelia's heart pounded so hard, she was sure he could hear it. But something in his tone made her continue. I think you treat people like objects, as if money is the only thing that matters. And is that wrong? Yes. Why? Because people aren't things that can be bought. Alexander laughed. A cold, humorless laugh. Of course they are. Everything can be bought. Loyalty, respect, love. It's just a matter of finding the right price. Amelia looked him directly in the eyes for the first time in the 2 years she had worked for him. Then why are you alone? Silence filled the office like a toxic gas. Alexander opened his mouth to reply, but no sound came out. At that moment, the reception phone rang. Amelia ran to answer, grateful for the interruption. Vance Pharmaceuticals? Is Mr. Vance available? This is his mother. One moment, Mrs. Vance. Alexander took the call in his private office, but Amelia could hear fragments through the door. No, Mom, I don't have a date for the gala. Yes, I know it's important for the company's image. No, I can't go alone again. When he hung up, he came out of his office with an expression Amelia had never seen. Vulnerability mixed with desperation. The American Business Foundation Charity Gala was the most important social event of the year. All the country's magnates would be there, and Alexander Vance, the most successful CEO of his generation, would go alone. Again. Amelia continued working in silence, but for the first time in 2 years, she felt something akin to pity for her boss. She didn't know that pity was about to change their lives forever. What do you think is Alexander's biggest flaw? And what do you think Amelia's biggest strength is? Share your insights in the comments. A daring invitation. The unlikely date. Alexander spent the whole night awake, pacing his penthouse in Manhattan. The humiliation of the previous day burned like acid in his veins. Every rejection, every muffled laugh on the phone, every polite but devastating excuse. At 5 in the morning, he had a plan. Amelia arrived at the office at 7 sharp, as always. She wore the same gray suit she wore every Monday, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, no makeup. She was invisibility personified. Good morning, Mr. Vance. Alexander observed her from his desk. For the first time in 2 years, he truly saw her. She wasn't ugly, just subdued, like a lamp without a bulb. Miss Hayes, sit down. Amelia blinked, confused. In 2 years, he had never offered her a seat. Is something wrong, sir? Yes, I have a proposal for you. Alexander leaned back in his Italian leather chair, studying her reaction. Amelia kept her hands clasped in her lap, her back straight. There was something in her posture that didn't fit her modest appearance, a natural elegance he had never noticed. The American Business Foundation Charity Gala is the day after tomorrow. Yes, sir. I already confirmed your attendance. Exactly, but I need an escort. Amelia nodded, expecting instructions to contact a modeling agency or luxury escort service. I want you to come with me. The words fell like stones into still water. Amelia looked at him, not understanding. Pardon, you will be my escort to the gala. But sir, I'm your assistant. I don't think it's appropriate. Why? Because you're not good enough to be by my side? The question had venom. Alexander smiled, enjoying the discomfort in Amelia's eyes. It's not that. It's just, well, those kinds of events are for people of a certain social level, and you don't have that level? Amelia fell silent. In her mind, blurry images of another life flickered like candles in the wind. Marble halls, endless gardens, the scent of gardenias in the family estate in Virginia. Her father, Robert Davies, teaching her to walk with books on her head. Her mother, Eleanor Hayes, correcting her posture at formal dinners. Miss Hayes, I'm offering you a unique opportunity. You'll meet the most important businessmen in the country. It could be beneficial for your career. Alexander lied with the ease of someone who had built an empire on half-truths. His plan was simple and cruel. Take his insignificant secretary to the most exclusive event of the year, let everyone see how desperate he was, and then fire her for embarrassing him. 2 birds with 1 stone. What exactly would I have to do? Just accompany me. Take some notes if necessary. Nothing complicated. Amelia thought of her almost empty bank account, of her Aunt Eleanor's accumulating medical bills, of the 2 weekend jobs she needed to survive. Would there be any financial compensation for the extra work? Of course. Consider it overtime. I accept. Perfect. It's a black tie event, so you'll need an appropriate dress. I'll give you an advance to buy something decent. Alexander took out his checkbook, wrote a ridiculously small amount, and handed it to her. Amelia looked at the check. $500. Barely enough for a department store dress. Thank you, sir. That afternoon, after work, Amelia took the subway to the West Village. She walked through streets she hadn't trod in 5 years until she reached an Art Deco building that had seen better days. Aunt Eleanor opened the door before she knocked. At 70, she retained the elegance she had inherited from generations of Hayes women. Amelia, my dear, what brings you here? I need your help, Aunt. They sat in the small but impeccably decorated living room. Eleanor had saved some furniture from the family debacle. A Louis XV sofa, a mahogany coffee table, portraits of ancestors looking down from gilded frames. My boss invited me to a business gala. Eleanor raised an eyebrow. She knew Amelia's story. She knew why she had disappeared from New York's social scene 5 years ago. The Business Foundation gala? Yes. How do you know? Because your father was a founding member of that organization, my dear, before everything fell apart. Amelia felt the familiar lump in her throat. The financial scandal that destroyed the Hayes Group had been front-page news. Her father, accused of money laundering. Her mother, dying of shame before seeing her name cleared. Amelia, losing everything overnight. I need a dress, Aunt. Something appropriate. Eleanor smiled sadly. Follow me. She led her to her bedroom, opened an antique wardrobe, and took out a black velvet box. Your mother asked me to keep this. She said you would need it someday. Inside was an emerald green silk dress, expertly cut, with subtle embroidery that could only be appreciated up close. It was elegant without being ostentatious, sophisticated without screaming wealth. Mom wore it on her first date with Dad, and now you'll wear it to reclaim your place in the world. Eleanor took out another, smaller box. Inside, the Hayes emeralds gleamed like drops of green water. Necklace, earrings, bracelet, jewelry that had passed from mother to daughter for 4 generations. Aunt, I can't. If anyone recognizes them, let them. You are Amelia Eleanor Hayes, granddaughter of Mr. William Hayes, great-granddaughter of Mrs. Eleanor Miller Hayes. You carry the blood of founders and innovators. A financial scandal cannot erase 4 centuries of history. Amelia took the jewels with trembling hands. The family's weight both comforted and terrified her. If everything goes wrong, then it will go wrong with dignity, like a haze. That night, Amelia tried on the dress in front of her aunt's full-length mirror. The transformation was astonishing. The silk fit her body like liquid water. The emeralds enhanced the green of her eyes. Her loose hair fell in natural waves over her shoulders. For the first time in 5 years, she saw the woman she had been. The heiress of the Hayes Empire, the young woman who spoke 4 languages, who had studied in Switzerland, who knew the secrets of international markets. Eleanor appeared behind her in the reflection. "There's my girl. There's the real Amelia. Do you think Dad would be proud? Your father was always proud of you, and tomorrow all of New York will remember why." Meanwhile, in his penthouse, Alexander practiced in front of the mirror the phrases he would use to introduce his pathetic escort. He imagined the looks of pity, the mocking whispers, Amelia's ultimate humiliation when she realized she had been used. He had no idea he was about to face the most dangerous woman in New York, a Hayes with nothing to lose and everything to prove. The gala would be in less than 24 hours. Alexander planned a humiliation. Amelia planned a resurrection. Neither of them knew that both plans were destined to fail in the most spectacular way possible. The unveiling. A queen returns. Alexander adjusted his Hermes tie for the 10th time as the Four Seasons valet opened the door of his Maserati. The hotel gleamed like a jewel in the heart of Midtown, its illuminated windows reflecting the city lights. Tonight would be perfect. His cruel plan would execute flawlessly. He walked through the marble lobby with the confidence of someone who had built an empire before the age of 35. Waiters greeted him with bows. Lesser businessmen moved out of his way. Alexander Vance had arrived. He entered the grand presidential ballroom, where the most powerful magnates in America were already gathered. He recognized faces from the covers of Forbes. Elon Musk conversing with the British ambassador, the Rockefeller family near the French champagne bar, the heirs of J.P. Morgan evaluating investments by the crystal fountain. Alexander smiled. In half an hour, when his pathetic secretary arrived in some cheap dress from Macy's, all these business titans would witness his public humiliation. Revenge would be sweet. He took a glass of Dom Perignon and approached the group of international pharmaceutical executives. He needed to strategically position himself for the spectacle. "Vance, good to see you." Mr. Michael Johnson extended his hand. At 60, the communications magnate was still an unstoppable force in American business. "Mr. Johnson, the pleasure is mine. How are negotiations going with the European labs?" "Good, good. Though I wonder why you didn't bring an escort. The most beautiful women in New York are here tonight." Alexander feigned a mysterious smile. "Let's just say I have a surprise prepared." At that moment, a murmur ran through the ballroom like a wave. Conversations gradually ceased. Faces turned towards the main entrance. Alexander followed their gazes and felt the world stop. A woman had appeared in the doorway of the grand ballroom. She wore an emerald green silk dress that molded to her body like liquid water. Every movement created waves of light that hypnotized those present. Her brown hair fell in perfect waves over her bare shoulders, and the emeralds adorning her neck and wrists captured the chandelier light like green stars. But it wasn't just her beauty that had silenced the ballroom. It was her presence. She walked with the natural grace of someone who had been born for these spaces, her head held high, her shoulders straight, every step calculated to maximize impact. "Who is this woman?" Alexander whispered the words unknowingly. His brain refused to process what he saw in her eyes. That goddess who had paralyzed the most important social event of the year could not be his invisible secretary. But she was. Amelia Eleanor Hayes walked through the ballroom with the confidence of someone returning home after a long exile. She smiled at familiar faces she hadn't seen in 5 years. She elegantly greeted businessmen who had known her father. She navigated among the social groups like a fish in clear water. Alexander followed her from a distance, still in shock. Every step Amelia took demolished his prejudices like hammer blows to crystal. "Mr. Dubois, what a pleasure to meet you." Amelia approached the representative of the French laboratories, speaking in perfect French that made the man beam with pleasure. "Mademoiselle, vous parlez français comme une Parisienne. C'est magnifique. J'ai étudié à la Sorbonne pendant 2 ans. Comment vont les négociations avec le marché latino-américain?" The conversation flowed between French, English, and Spanish. Amelia discussed European pharmaceutical regulations with the ease of someone who had lived in those worlds. Alexander approached close enough to listen, unable to believe what he was witnessing. The American market has enormous potential for oncology drugs, especially if we consider the new FDA regulations and their alignment with EU standards. Dubois was impressed. "Exactly. But we need local partners who understand both the regulation and the American business culture." Amelia smiled. Vance Pharmaceuticals has had excellent results in pediatric oncology. Its CEO, Alexander Vance, has revolutionized affordable treatments in Latin America. Alexander felt like he was choking. His invisible secretary was promoting his company with more elegance and knowledge than he himself possessed. "Do you know Mr. Vance? I work very closely with him." At that moment, a powerful voice resonated behind them. "Those emeralds, they're the Hayes family jewels." Mr. Richard Thompson approached the group, his eyes fixed on Amelia's jewels. At 67, the telecommunications magnate had a prodigious memory for details that mattered in the world of American business. Amelia slowly turned, a serene smile on her lips. "Mr. Thompson, what an honor to see you again." "Amelia? Amelia Hayes?" The recognition fell on the group like a silent bomb. Other businessmen approached, drawn by the commotion. "I thought you had disappeared after the incident with your father." Amelia maintained her composure, but Alexander could see a flicker of pain in her eyes. "I decided to keep a low profile while things cleared up, but I never stopped working in the pharmaceutical industry." "Working? Where?" "At Vance Pharmaceuticals, as an executive assistant to Mr. Vance." The silence that followed was deafening. Mr. Thompson looked at Alexander with a mixture of disbelief and respect. "You have a Hayes working as a secretary?" Alexander opened his mouth, but no sound came out. His cruel plan had turned into a public nightmare. He had brought the heiress of one of America's most respected empires as if she were a joke, and now the entire business elite knew it. Amelia approached him with the grace of a queen. "Alexander, allow me to introduce you to some international colleagues." Over the next hour, Amelia transformed Alexander's planned humiliation into the greatest social triumph of his career. She introduced him to European investors, facilitated conversations with American regulators, negotiated preliminary agreements worth millions of dollars. Alexander watched her work with a mixture of admiration and terror. This woman had been sitting across from his desk for 2 years, organizing his agenda, enduring his humiliations, and he had never seen who she really was. "Mr. Vance, your assistant is extraordinary." The German ambassador approached with a glass of red wine. "She knows our markets better than many of our own executives. Where did you find her?" Alexander looked at Amelia, who was conversing animatedly with a group of Japanese investors, in fluent Japanese that he didn't even know she mastered. "She found me." The answer came out without thinking, but it was the most honest truth he had said in years. When the clock struck 11 at night, Amelia approached him, Are you ready to retire, Mr. Vance? Her voice was soft, professional, as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Alexander had come to the gala to humiliate his invisible secretary, and he had discovered that for 2 years he had had the most extraordinary woman in America organizing his calendar. Yes, let's go. They walked towards the exit in silence. The businessmen bid them farewell, with bows that were directed at both of them, perhaps more at her. In the elevator, he finally found his voice. Why did you never tell me who you were? Amelia looked at him through the reflection of the gilded doors. Because you never asked. The doors opened in the lobby. Alexander knew that when they left that hotel, nothing would ever be the same between them. And for the first time in his life, that didn't terrify him. It excited him. What an incredible reveal. How do you think Alexander's relationship with Amelia will change after this night? And what do you predict will happen to his reputation? Share your thoughts in the comments. Unveiling the past. A family's fall. The valet brought Alexander's Maserati, but he didn't move from the Four Seasons lobby. Amelia waited by the marble columns, still radiant in her emerald dress. But something had changed in her posture. The mask of social perfection had cracked, revealing the vulnerable woman hiding underneath. I don't want this to end like this. The words left Alexander's mouth before he could stop them. Amelia looked at him in surprise. How, Mr. Vance? Without lies? Without games? I want to know who you really are. Amelia studied his face, looking for signs of another cruelty, another plan to humiliate her. But Alexander's green eyes showed something she had never seen in 2 years of working. Sincerity. There's a place where we can talk. She led him towards the elevators, but this time pressed the button for the highest floor. The elevator took them to the Sky Terrace, the hotel's panoramic bar, which was closed to the public at that hour. Amelia took a golden card from her small handbag. How do you have access? Because my family built this hotel. They stepped out onto the terrace. New York City stretched before them like an ocean of lights. Times Square gleamed in the distance, the Empire State Building illuminated against the night sky. The cool November air carried the scent of the city, street food, car exhaust, autumn leaves. Alexander took off his jacket and placed it over Amelia's shoulders. The gesture was so natural that both were surprised. Now tell me who you are. Amelia approached the railing, her gloved hands gripping the cold metal. I'm Amelia Eleanor Hayes, heiress of the Hayes Group. The words floated in the night air like sacred confessions. My great-grandfather, Mr. William Hayes, came from England in 1890 with a suitcase and a dream. He built the first pharmaceutical empire in America. My grandfather expanded it throughout Latin America. My father, Robert, turned it into a global powerhouse. Alexander approached, fascinated by the transformation in her voice. She was no longer the submissive secretary. She was a woman telling the story of her lineage. What happened? Amelia closed her eyes. The city lights reflected in the tears she refused to shed. 5 years ago, my father discovered that his closest partner, Mr. John Davies, had been laundering drug money through our operations in Colombia. Dad confronted him, threatened to report him, and Mr. Davies moved first. He planted false evidence. He bribed officials. He bought witnesses. Overnight, Robert Hayes went from being a business hero to being the face of American corruption. Alexander remembered the headlines. The scandal had been front-page news for months. He had never connected his invisible secretary with that national tragedy. The media destroyed us. We lost everything. The companies, the properties, the bank accounts. Dad died of a heart attack 6 months later. Mom couldn't bear the shame and left 2 months later. And you? I survived. I changed my last name to just Hayes. I got new documents. I disappeared from the social world. I needed a job. And Vance Pharmaceuticals was hiring executive assistants. Why my company? Because I wanted to be close to the pharmaceutical industry. I wanted to understand how it worked from the inside, to learn from my family's mistakes. Alexander felt the ground move beneath his feet. For 2 years, he had treated the woman who had lost more than he could imagine like dirt. Amelia? Me? I didn't, well, no. Of course you didn't know. You never asked me anything personal. To you, I was a piece of furniture that organized your schedule. The words were knives, but Alexander deserved every one of them. You're right. I've been an idiot. Not just with you. With everyone. You treat people like objects because you think money gives you that right. And why did you stay? Why did you endure my humiliations for 2 years? Because I needed the job. And because I wanted to prove to myself that I could survive at the bottom before trying to get back to the top. Amelia turned to him, the emeralds on her neck catching the moonlight. Tonight, I didn't come to humiliate you, Alexander. I came to remind the world who I really am, and who you are. A Hayes. And Hayes women never give up. Alexander studied her in silence. The woman in front of him was a mystery he had been solving for 2 years without knowing it. Every elegant gesture, every intelligent answer, every moment of quiet dignity now made sense. I lost everything, but I never lost my dignity. Amelia's voice cracked slightly on the last word. Alexander felt something unknown stirring in his chest. It wasn't pity. It was admiration. You're the strongest woman I've ever met. I don't feel strong. I feel tired. Amelia sank into one of the terrace chairs. For the first time since he had known her, Alexander saw her real vulnerability. Do you know what it's like to lose everything overnight? To go from having a chauffeur to taking the subway, from dining in 5-star restaurants to eating street tacos. Alexander sat across from her. No, I was born with money. I've never lost anything important. Then you don't know what real humility is. You're right, but I want to learn. Why? Because I've been an idiot my whole life. But with you, I want to be different. The words came from his heart. No filters, no calculations. Amelia looked at him in surprise. Different how? Better, more human. I want to be the man you deserve, not the one you've tolerated. Alexander moved closer. He took Amelia's gloved hands in his. Tonight you showed me that for 2 years I had the most extraordinary woman in America working for me, and I was too blind and arrogant to see her. I'm not extraordinary. I'm just a woman who has lost a lot and is trying to rebuild her life. You're extraordinary, because after losing everything you chose dignity over bitterness. You chose to work instead of giving up. You chose to forgive instead of seeking revenge. Forgive. Tonight you could have humiliated me in front of all of New York's business elite. You could have revealed that the great Alexander Vance hired a Hayes as a secretary without knowing it. But you didn't. Amelia smiled for the first time all night. That would have been cruel, and I'm not cruel. That's why you're better than me. Alexander moved closer, their faces inches apart. The city lights created a golden halo around them. Amelia, I want to get to know you. The real woman, not the secretary you pretended to be. And what if you don't like what you find? Impossible. Their lips met under the starry sky of New York City. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, as if both feared breaking the spell. But then it deepened, charged with 2 years of unrecognized tension, of finally revealed secrets, of two souls who had found each other in the most unexpected place. When they separated, Amelia had tears in her eyes. Don't cry. They're not tears of sadness. It's just that for 5 years, no one has really seen me. I see you, and I want to keep seeing you for the rest of my life." The words were a promise and a confession. Under the lights of the city that had witnessed her fall, and now her rebirth, Amelia Eleanor Hayes had found something she believed lost forever: the possibility of loving and being loved for who she truly was. This is such a powerful and emotional revelation. What do you think will be the biggest challenge for Alexander and Amelia now that the truth is out? And how will they navigate their new relationship amidst the public eye? Share your predictions in the comments. Rebuilding a legacy, a shared purpose. 3 months later, the employees of Vance Pharmaceuticals no longer quickened their pace when they heard Alexander Vance's voice. The CEO, who once roared orders from his office, now walked through the hallways asking about his employees' families, remembering names of children and birth dates. "Good morning, Clara. How's your mom after the operation?" The receptionist almost fainted. In 5 years working there, it was the first time the boss had spoken to her without shouting. "Very well, Mr. Vance. Thank you for asking." "I'm glad to hear that. If you need time off to take care of her, just let me know." Alexander continued walking towards the elevator, unaware of the stir he had caused. Employees looked at each other, whispering theories about their boss's transformation. Some said he had found religion, others that he was sick. But the more observant ones had noticed that the change had begun exactly 3 months earlier, the morning after the charity gala. The elevator stopped on the 45th floor. Alexander walked towards his office, but stopped in front of the desk Amelia used to occupy as his assistant. Now it had a golden plaque that read, "Amelia E. Hayes, Senior Strategic Consultant." She was no longer his secretary. She was his partner, his advisor, his equal in every business sense, and much more than that. "Good morning, Ms. Hayes." Alexander smiled as he used her full title. Amelia looked up from the financial reports she was reviewing, her green eyes shining with that intelligence he had taken 2 years to recognize. "Good morning, Mr. Vance. The contracts with the European labs are ready for review." "Perfect. Do you have time for lunch? I want to discuss the Central American expansion proposal." "Sure. At the usual restaurant?" "No, I have a better idea." That afternoon, instead of heading to some exclusive restaurant in Midtown, Alexander took Amelia to a small, family-owned restaurant in the East Village. They sat at plastic tables, ate chicken curry served on chipped plates, and discussed business strategies while a local band played folk music in the corner. "You know what I like about this place?" Amelia tasted the curry, her eyes closing in pleasure as she recognized the authentic flavors of her childhood. "What?" "That here I'm just Alexander, not the CEO of Vance Pharmaceuticals, and you're just Amelia, not the heiress of the Hayes." Amelia smiled, wiping a drop of curry from the corner of her lips. "And who are we when we're just Alexander and Amelia?" Two people falling in love. The words fell between them like autumn leaves. It was the first time Alexander had used the word love, and both felt its weight. "Are you falling in love with me, Alexander Vance?" "Completely. Lost. Totally, irremediably in love." Amelia extended her hand across the plastic table. Alexander took it, their fingers intertwining as if they had been destined to fit together forever. "Me too." That night, Alexander couldn't sleep. He walked through his penthouse in Manhattan, but for the first time in his life, the luxury surrounding him seemed empty. He wanted something more. He wanted a shared life, a family, a future that wasn't just his own. At 3 in the morning, he made a decision that would change everything. 2 weeks later, Amelia received a mysterious invitation. Alexander had invited her to the Lincoln Center for a special performance by the New York City Ballet. She arrived dressed in an elegant navy blue dress, not suspecting what awaited her. The theater was almost empty. There were only a dozen people scattered in the orchestra section, and Alexander was waiting for her in the first row, with a nervous smile she had never seen before. "What is all this?" "A surprise." The lights dimmed, and the New York City Ballet began its performance. Dances from various traditions, the vibrant colors of the costumes filled the stage. Traditional music resonated in the historic theater. Amelia lost herself in the beauty of her culture, in the traditions she had grown up loving. But then something changed. The dancers stopped, the music softened, and a familiar voice resonated through the loudspeakers. "Amelia Eleanor Hayes." She turned, confused. Alexander was no longer in his seat. He was on stage, with a microphone in his hand, and an expression that mixed terror and determination. "3 months ago, I thought I knew the meaning of power. I thought having money gave me the right to treat people like objects. I was wrong." His voice amplified throughout the theater. Amelia felt her heart pound in her chest. "You taught me that true power is not in humiliating, but in uplifting others. That true wealth is not measured in dollars, but in the ability to love and be loved." Alexander came down from the stage. He walked down the central aisle until he reached her. He took a small black velvet box from his jacket. "You taught me that the most valuable people sometimes come disguised as invisible secretaries. That nobility is not inherited. It's built with every act of dignity." He knelt in front of her. Amelia covered her mouth with her hands, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Amelia, you taught me that true love is not about possessing someone, but about becoming the best version of yourself, to deserve it." He opened the box. Inside was an engagement ring with a central emerald surrounded by diamonds. But it wasn't just any emerald. It was one of the stones from the Hayes family collection, which Alexander had secretly bought at a private auction. "Will you marry me?" Amelia couldn't speak. She just nodded, tears preventing her from seeing clearly. Alexander slipped the ring onto her finger, stood up, and kissed her, while the New York City Ballet resumed its performance and the few spectators applauded. Yes, 1,000 times yes. The following months were a whirlwind of preparations, but also of reconciliations. Alexander used his contacts and resources to help clear Robert Hayes's name. He hired the best lawyers, private investigators, and investigative journalists. Little by little, the truth about John Davies came to light. The day the New York Times published on its front page the posthumous exoneration of Robert Hayes, Amelia cried for hours. Her father had died without seeing his name cleared, but at least the world would know the truth. As a wedding gift for Amelia, Alexander proposed something no one expected: the merger of Vance Pharmaceuticals with the recovered assets of the Hayes Group. The new company would be called Vance Hayes Pharmaceuticals, and its mission would be to develop affordable medicines for the most needy communities in America. "It's not just a business, Amelia," Alexander said. "It's a legacy. The legacy your father would have wanted." The wedding was held at St. Patrick's Cathedral in Manhattan, the simpler place where Amelia's ancestors had married for generations. She wore her great-grandmother's wedding dress, modified by the city's best seamstresses. Alexander waited at the altar in a traditional tux, honoring the American roots he had learned to value. When the priest asked if he accepted Amelia as his wife, Alexander replied in a clear voice, "I accept her, I respect her, and I promise to love her as the treasure she is." And when Amelia was asked, she looked into the eyes of the man who had gone from being her tormentor to her savior. "I accept him, and I promise to help him be the best version of himself every day of our lives." They kissed under the centuries-old vaults, while the cathedral bells rang out, and guests threw rose petals and confetti. At the reception, held in the gardens of the New York Botanical Garden, With decorated gazebos and a jazz band playing classic tunes, Alexander raised his glass of aged whiskey to toast. I learned that true love doesn't just transform the heart, it transforms a whole life. Amelia taught me that being rich doesn't mean having a lot of money, but having a lot to give. Amelia approached him, radiant in her wedding dress, the family emeralds gleaming on her neck. And I learned that second chances exist, that dignity is never lost, and that sometimes love comes disguised as an unbearable boss. They laughed, toasted, and danced under the stars of the New York Valley. Two souls who had found each other in the most unexpected place, who had transformed pain into love, arrogance into humility, and loneliness into a family. True love had triumphed, not because it was easy, but because both had chosen to grow, change, and become the people who deserved to love each other forever. This is a truly magnificent story of transformation, humility, and the triumph of true worth. It reminds us that appearances can be deceiving, and that genuine connections are far more valuable than wealth or status. If this story moved you to believe in second chances and the power of love, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs a dose of inspiration. And if you're new here, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our upcoming stories. We love knowing that our tales reach hearts around the world, so tell us in the comments, where are you watching us from? Your support helps us continue creating quality content that explores the complexities of human relationships and the unexpected ways destiny can rewrite our lives. Thank you for watching.